Episode 4, The Giants of the North. Location, 10 kilometers south of the city of Nome, state of Alaska in the United States, 70 million years after the extinction of mankind. During the Anthropocene, this place was a human settlement in the cold coasts of the Bering Sea, where humped whales and seals could be observed swimming, but now instead of the gelid waters of the north of the Pacific Ocean we find the snowy peaks of the Bering Mountains, a huge and majestic mountainous chain born from the collision of the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates. These mountains reach around 5,000 meters in height and create a natural barrier between the continents that has allowed for some degree of genetic isolation between the populations of Arctic creatures at each sides of the massive mountains. The first creatures we find here are descendants of rabbits that evolved in Europe and Asia and crossed the mountains just around 10 million years ago. These are the mammoths. More than 3 meters tall to the shoulder and an average weight of 4 tons. They are one of the largest mammals alive, and the largest lagomorph to ever exist. On top of their sheer size they have very dense fur and a thick layer of subcutaneous fat, what makes them especially well suited for cold environments. They feel comfortable in places that would kill a human from hypothermia in minutes, using their large claws and powerful front limbs to dig out the vegetation that lies beneath the snow. They shed their hair at the beginning of spring, and several birds follow the herd during this time to collect the falling hair as insulating material for their nest. The herds are generally formed by a large dominant male and 10 to 20 smaller females with their calves. The males are around 20% heavier than the females, and during mating season they produce a strong smelling substance from a couple glands located at each side of their scrotum. This communicates their physical fitness to any possible rival that might try to challenge them. They mate at the beginning of spring. These animals have a very long pregnancy, 14 months, so the calves that are conceived this spring will be born next summer. Then the young will remain with the mother for at least 8 years, after what the males will go to live on their own or form a small bachelors group until they are big enough to challenge another male for mating rights, while the females will remain in their mother's herd for the rest of their life. Just like modern rabbits, they are often observed to ingest their own feces in order to absorb more nutrients and have a second chance at digesting particularly hard vegetation. The mammoth is the last remaining representative of an almost completely extinct clade of huge lagomorphs that a couple million years ago could be found in all the cold regions of Eurasia and North America. Now all the Eurasian populations are extinct and the surviving ones can only be found in Yukon and Alaska. Their decline is product of climate change, as these creatures feel at home only in the cold tundra, an environment that is year by year becoming more and more scarce. These titans are now an endangered species. We observe this lonely male scratching himself on a tree. His skin itches from the bites of tiny parasites, not tick or fleas, but nanobats. The nanobat is the smallest species of mammal currently alive, around 2 grams in weight and a wingspan of between 3 and 4 inches. They are specialist hematophagous bats that co-evolved with the ancestors of the mammoths. They live all their lives inside these titans' fur, and survive only thanks to their body heat. A single mammoth can host up to 50 of these little parasites, not without taking a huge toll on their health. They only fly when their host dies, and unless they find another host in a few minutes they will freeze to death. But due to their host being a very social species, they usually don't have much trouble finding a new one when they need it, and is not often that they actually find themselves in this situation. The average lifespan of one of these bats is around 18 months, while the mammoths can live for half a century, so more than 40 generations can pass without changing host. These bats are descendants of insectivorous Anthropocene bats, not closely related to vampire bats, and their dentition and way of feeding is a little different. While vampire bats used to bite their prey with sharp upper incisors and canine teeth, creating a bleeding wound from where they would lick their food, the nanobats only have 2 teeth, their lower incisors, fused into a straw-like structure that they use to pierce blood vessels and drink. They will sometimes remain attached for several days in the same position. No, only these bats are interested in the mammoths as a food source. A couple 100 meters behind the herd a hungry predator is on the prowl. This is the largest land carnivore of this tundra, more than 220 kilograms in weight, around 1.5 meters tall and a bite force comparable to the one of a jaguar. This animal is one of the most dangerous predatory mammals we have encountered so far, the berserker shrew. While the ancient shrews that shared the planet with humans might not have looked like a powerful predator, they were indeed very proficient hunters, sometimes able to take down prey bigger than themselves, equipped with a rather unique set of teeth and in some cases even venom. After the mass extinction, the Eurasian and African populations remained relatively small under the pressure of true carnivorans, but in North America they managed to diversify on many shapes and take many niches, with the berserker shrew as the largest representative. They hunt a large variety of megafauna, including several species of giant rodents, herbivorous giant armadillos and lagomorphs, and while an adult mammoth is way out of their league, the newborns are a completely different story. The predator will follow the herd for days on, always keeping a necessary distance in order not to be detected. Once one of the calves gets a little too careless and wanders away from the mother, then run at a speed of more than 70 kilometers per hour and bite the throat, not to suffocate the prey like big cats, but to tear it apart, causing it to quickly bleed out. While these creatures are generally solitary, just occasionally and if food is abundant it's possible to observe two of them feeding from the same carcass or temporarily sharing a burrow during the coldest nights of winter. They mate year-round, and the pregnancy is very short, around 2 months. The cubs grow fast and can be weaned after their 4th month of age, and reach their full size before their 2nd birthday. A few hundred meters away from the mother and her cubs, an unexpectedly large animal just pops up on the ground. It is the beginning of spring and this wolf elk is waking up from a 6-month-long nap. The wolf elk or American velk is a species of giant armadillo that can be found in most of Canada, and part of the north of the United States, and with a weight of almost 200 kilograms is one of the largest xenarthrans currently alive, only surpassed by the closely related Siberian volk, and the Argentinian elephant pichi. The wolf elk is a generalist herbivore that feeds mostly on grasses, roots and tubers. It uses its long prehensile tongue to grasp vegetation and conduct it to its mouth. It lacks incisor teeth but has developed a dental pad, similar to many ancient ungulates, to aid them in grazing. Their molars are wide and strong and their stomach is divided in 2 chambers to further digestion of the vegetation. One serves as a fermentation compartment while the other works as a traditional stomach, and their intestines are very large as well. The younglings will eat their mother feces to gain their intestinal bacteria. During spring is normal to find them grazing in the tundra alongside other herbivores like mammoths or woolly rats, but during summer some of them, especially elderly individuals, will travel north, to the rocky beaches between Alaska and Canada to feed on algae. This place is too cold for them to come any other time of the year, and the trip is long and exhausting, but the nutrients this algae provides them makes it worth the waste. In this coasts we can find yet another titan of the north. This is the emirate, by far the largest marine mammal alive, with an average weight of 2 tons. They are twice as heavy as their close relatives, the giant otter rats that inhabit most of North America and part of Eurasia. Their size is a result of both adapting to the extremely cold environment and the large quantity of food they have access to. This large rodents feed primarily on mollusks and crustaceans. They use their huge incisors to scrape tiny clams from the surface of the rocks, then grind them with 3 inches wide molars and swallow it through a reinforced throat and esophagus. After that they will throw up most of the larger sharp shatters and the small ones will be dissolved in its stomach, which has an acidity comparable to the one of large scavengers like the extinct vultures of the Anthropocene. The males are around 30% heavier than the females, and the competition for mating rights is fierce. Although fights between males usually don't end up with any of the participants dying, most older males will have at least a couple scars, and in some cases they wrestle each other until fainting from exhaustion. A large male can mate with 10 or 20 females. After this the pregnancy lasts for around 10 months, after what they will give birth to a single cub. Now a particular behavior that has been observed among the mothers is that they have some sort of babysitting system, where 2 females will take turns to feed, while the other keeps an eye on the cubs, is usually sisters or mothers and daughters, but can also be unrelated individuals. It's important to always keep an eye on these cubs, because for many Arctic predators, they are part of the menu. Like this bird, the taro, around the size of a cassowary and armed with a strong beak, is the largest species of penguin alive, and therefore a descendant of Portuguese dipper, while most of its relatives have evolved a similar anatomy and lifestyle to the one of penguins. The taro is more of an opportunistic hunter and scavenger, that generally doesn't swim in the open ocean. They mostly rely on the strategy of catching crustaceans and fish trapped in tide pools for feeding. They will also hunt chicks from other species of penguin, ground nesting seagulls or ducks from time to time. However, during spring they will spend most of their time prowling around the Amarot's colony to try to snatch any unguarded cubs. This is very dangerous considering the difference in size between the taro and the Amarots, but if they are successful, a single cub can keep them fed for more than a week. Sometimes if food becomes scarce, bigger individuals might get territorial and chase juveniles away from the tide pools. These juveniles sometimes attempt to catch fish like most other penguins do, but their success rate is very low, and if they are particularly unfortunate they might end like this one. Within this gelid water there is a giant predator, the largest living invertebrate and one of the largest to have ever existed. This is the ice kraken, well, a juvenile one. This particular individual weighs around 90 kilograms, which is already impressive for an octopus, but at an age of 3 years, it still has a long time to continue growing. These octopus can live up to 10 years, maybe a little more depending on the individual, and can reach a size only comparable to among invertebrates to the one of their distant cousins, the colossal squids of the Anthropocene. While the juveniles can be found in shallow waters and tide pools, using stealth and patience to catch mid-sized prey like small otter rats, some penguins and even small birds, and the subadults hunt small marine mammals and large birds like the taro close to the shore. The adults spend most of their time in the dark depths of the ocean, more than 2,000 meters under the surface, feeding on deep-sea sharks and other cephalopods, which they ambush and subdue with their 8 powerful 6 meters long arms and kill with their venomous beak. They generally reproduce only one time in their life. Like in most octopus, the male will follow chemical signals to find a female. The ones that once reaching adulthood become less and less active. After this is a little different. The male will spend around 48 hours courting the female, constantly massaging her and surrounding her with his tentacles. After that they mate and the male goes away. The female will lay between 50,000 to 200,000 eggs that she will take care for around 6 months until they hatch. Once the hatchlings are born, the mother will most often die, collapsing from exhaustion. Only around a 10% survive to reproduce a second time.